Hello to my Griffin artists. Well, I heard you had a very special visitor on your video, none other than Japanese contemporary artist Yayoi Kusama. Very exciting. She must think you guys are pretty special for her to send a video all the way from Japan. And I heard that she read this book to you. So, today's art project is inspired by the art of Yayoi Kusama. Now, I know that she told you, and also you read in her books about her love of polka dots. And she's very famous for her polka dot pumpkins. She puts them in her infinity room. They're little miniature sculptures. She also paints them, but they are known to be little sculptures. And she has a massive sculpture that is at the end of a pier that is just so cool. And I thought that we would make our own similar to this, but instead of a pumpkin, since we are approaching the holiday of Valentine's Day, we would use the same polka dot motif or theme or style that Yayoi brings to her pumpkins, but bring them to hearts. So what you're going to need today for this art project is I made sure that everybody had their own piece of watercolor paper because we're going to be using our watercolors. And it already has the heart on there for you. And I want you to take that out. You're going to need a pencil. You're going to need a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you can use a book because we're going to use that ruler to make straight lines going down our heart. Okay? And so if you have a ruler, great, that's easy. If you don't, you can use a book kind of to make your lines. I can show you how. So you're going to need a ruler. I would love for you to have a black Sharpie. If you don't have a black Sharpie, a black crayon will do. Now, a regular marker that's not a Sharpie will bleed when you go to paint over it, so you don't want to use a regular marker. If you have to use a regular black marker, if you don't have a black crayon or a black Sharpie, and you need to use a black marker for our black parts of our picture, then that's fine. You just won't paint. You'll use crayons or other markers to do your colors. Okay, hope that makes sense. So we're going to do our lines and our polka dots first with either a black Sharpie or a black crayon, because when you paint over crayon or Sharpie, it doesn't run and bleed. So meaning what I mean by bleed is that the colors on your polka dots, if you use black magic marker and then you put water over it, it's going to spread out and become kind of a mess and no longer have that circular form. So if you are in a bind and don't have a black Sharpie or a black crayon, use a black marker, but then when it goes time to add your color, use crayons or other markers, not watery watercolors. So if you have your watercolors, go and get those too. So you need your sheet, you need something to make straight lines with, either a ruler or a book. You're going to need some water for your watercolors, your paints. Your paints look a little bit different than mine. And we're going to start off with our pencil. So let's begin. So this is what we're going to end up having. And I'm going to put that out of the way, and I'm going to take what I gave you. So you should have that sheet. As you can feel now, probably you can feel the difference between that thick, nice watercolor paper I give you versus just a regular piece of computer paper or drawing paper, much thinner. And we call what you feel, if you take your fingers and you run that across your watercolor paper, you're going to feel something that we call teeth. And that's called the teeth of the paper, or what kind of tooth does the paper have? And that just means that's that kind of rough feeling. And watercolor paper is special because when you put the paint on it, it kind of absorbs it in a special way. If you try to watercolor regular paper, which we've all tried to do, you'll notice that it's going to just sop through that paper, usually end up making a hole. It's a little bit of a mess. So you're going to take your nice thick watercolor paper out. When I know that we're going to be painting, I try to get the watercolor paper for everybody. We're going to take our ruler, and you can do this one of two ways. We're going to start to make our lines down our heart. And you can start at one end of the heart, or if you'd like, you could go to the middle of the heart where that dips down to this little edge, and you can take your ruler and you can draw with your pencil a line from the top all the way down to the bottom. It doesn't need to be in the perfect spot, so don't worry. Like, for example, I see that mine's a little bit over. That's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. If I didn't have the ruler and I was using a book to do this, it's so super simple. I would just take my book. Instead of using my ruler, I would sort of use the edge of the book like my ruler. All you need is that edge. And I take my pencil and I run it along the edge so that it makes a line, okay? I'm gonna give myself a little bit of space. As you see here, I have a little bit of space in between each of my rows. So I'm gonna come over, I would say, like I'm gonna take my fingers, maybe 2 fingers, but for a little kid, maybe I would take more. And just give yourself a little bit more room. It doesn't, again, these don't have to be exact. You wanna give yourself enough room so that you're able to make a cool pattern. And I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna do another line. And then I'm gonna come over to the other side and finish off and do my lines over here. And another one over here. And another one over here. All right, so now I've got my heart that has all of my lines on it. I'm trying to do this so I can get my whole heart in the picture. And you want to wave? My daughter wants to wave. She just came over. You want to say hi? This is my daughter's hand. She says hello. So we learned a little bit we're learning about Yayoi Kusama, right? The crazy lady with the red hair. Crazy looking lady with the
chalk, and we did vlogs that she would
exactly. So anyway, so my griffins are learning about her, and we're doing an exercise today. We're going to make these awesome hearts that are just like the pumpkins.
James is one of those.
He's in 3rd grade, James is. All right, so now what we're going to do is you're going to go over your lines with your Sharpie or a crayon. And this can be tricky. I know sometimes it's hard to keep it steady, but you do the best that you can, and you just go over all of your lines.
Oh, if you get a little bit off the line, it's okay. You can erase the
Well, it's tough to erase Sharpie.
No, not Sharpie. The pencil. If
but look,
you actually get out of the way.
Well,
or you could use white.
I went a little bit out of my line here with my Sharpie, but you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. That's always an option too. Nothing's perfect, and I think if we're following and we're being inspired by Yayoi, she would tell us the same thing. So she would say, just keep creating. That's the important part. Keep creating. Okay, so I'm going to go through all of my lines. Now I'm either using the Sharpie or I'm using the black crayon or the black marker. And I'm just going to go up and outline all of my lines. This might be a part in the video where you want to pause it until you're done doing this, because I know I'm moving kind of quickly and I don't want you to get frustrated, and that is what the pause button is for.
But this is the quickest video you could see. The 12th bird. She was like going like...
Oh, the 12th bird. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, so here now I have my heart and I have my lines coming down. My vertical lines. This is vertical. This would be horizontal. This is vertical. And what I can do now, if I want, you don't have to, but you can go up and you can erase those pencil marks if you would like.
Just like what I said.
That's okay. So now we're going to come up. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take each section of our heart and we're going to put polka dots, spots or polka dots in them. And you can choose to do large polka dots like I did on some, or smaller ones. It's kind of fun to do different sizes. So if I chose to do really big ones here, I'm going to do little small ones there. It's up to you. You get to choose. And if you want to think back to our pumpkins for inspiration, here are the pumpkins. And here's the big pumpkin that she made. Okay. So I'm going to go in now and I'm going to start making my circles. And this is going to take a little bit of time. And you're just going to be patient and enjoy it. So I just go in and I start making a circle. Now, I want to say sometimes if you start making a circle, you go from the outside, like you make a circle, and then you go and you fill it in. That is one way of doing a circle. Another way of doing a circle, if you sometimes feel like they're a little bit, they're not as round as you like, is you can start with a dot and then start basically making a swirl shape or going around with your marker from that dot. If that makes sense. It's sort of hard to see on a video, but I'm starting with a very small dot and I'm working my way outward by taking my pen and sort of going in circles like so. These do not need to be perfect. Now you see what I'm doing here? I have some dots that are, I can see the entire dot, but I'm even going to do some half dots here. And that gives me the impression that that dot is actually working its way off of the page, which is kind of fun. Now you could, if you wanted to do, you could do straight dots right down the center. And that's very similar to the way that Yayoi has her pumpkins. Her pumpkins do have those little straight dots going down, as you can see. And then you could do little dots in between if you wanted. You, the artist, get to decide how you want your dots to look. Each section just trying to be a little bit different. In this section, I'm going to do very large dots. Here's a big one. Here's another big one. And what I'm doing with this, as you see, is I'm kind of making a half circle. I'm thinking to myself, what would happen if the dot moved from the center over to the side? You'd only see half of it. So I'm doing some of those. You're only seeing sort of half of the dot, and the other half we're assuming is off the page. What if I did a little, just a little one like that, just a little piece? That would mean that was like sort of the tip of the dot. Let me make some other large dots. And I'm going to go through each section, and I'm going to do that. Each section, making different dot sizes. And it's kind of fun to think about, well, how you're going to do it differently. And you know what? Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. It's supposed to be fun. I think one of the things that I love the most about this artist, this particular artist that we're talking about, is that her art is very whimsical and fun. And I think you heard her mention in her video that her art was considered avant-garde. That's kind of an interesting phrase, but that means unusual. But it is very bright colored art. It's very interesting. It's, somebody might look at it and say, that's weird. Although I think weird is pretty cool. So don't over worry about what patterns you're doing. Just do what comes to your mind or what you think looks cool. Okay. So on this one, I just
do dots or hearts because it's very Valentine's-y if you want.
Well, for this, I love, I love a heart. I love a heart. But for this, we're going to just do the dots because that is what our artist did. She was known for her dots. And does anybody remember from the video why she loved dots so much?
No.
She loved dots because she felt like they represented, like the stars in an endless galaxy. She thought that they represented the idea of infinity. Do you know what infinity means?
Disappear?
Well, you're kind of close. Infinity means going on forever and ever. And that is a concept that's kind of hard for us to even wrap our head around, the idea of infinity. And I think it really fascinated Yayoi and really inspired a lot of her art. And I think you probably remember from the book when Yayoi arrived in New York, she decided to go to the top of the Empire State Building, which is one of the tallest buildings in New York City. And she looked down on the building, and everybody below looked like little tiny dots. It was like an infinity, like a sea of these tiny dots of these people moving around. And it's sort of been a theme throughout her life and throughout her work. I'm going to do another little dots here. Okay. And then I think I'll do what I did before with the dots coming down. They said she even saw dots like in her dreams, or she would have these sort of images of dots. And I think by the end of this, we'll all be having that too. But anyway, here is my heart. And here I have my different sections with my different dot sizes. And now I'm going to go up and I'm going to add the color, which is always my favorite part. So you get to decide what colors you want to use. In this original one, I used Valentine's colors, pinks, purples, and reds, but you don't have to do that. You can use whatever colors you want. Maybe on this one, I'll do some blue. The artist Yayoi, her pumpkins that she did were usually always this yellowy color. And if you remember from the book, her parents used to grow pumpkins and flowers, and that she was really inspired by nature, like so many artists. So I'm going to go in now. Do not worry if your paint goes out of the lines. Don't worry about that, because what you're going to do is you're going to put your name on the back of your heart and you're going to send it into school, and I'm going to cut it out for you. And I'm going to put it on some really cool kind of bright colored paper, just like I think the artist would want. Also, if you haven't watched the interview with the artist, please do that first. Everyone's supposed to watch that first so they sort of have an idea of what we're doing. Now, what happens if my paint goes into my other section? Don't worry about it. You can take a little bit of water. Watercolor is very forgiving, and you just put your finger over it or take a little bit of extra water and use your paintbrush and do it that way. But please don't worry about things like that. You can just, I think you can find that you can correct mistakes very easily, or things that go over in the other section very easily. And if not, once you put the color over it, that'll probably blend in. And then ultimately, there's also the idea of just saying, this is art and this is enriching, and I'm not going to stress out or be anxious about certain things like that. Okay, so I think I've decided that this heart is going to be Valentine colors, but also other colors too. I'm just going to make it as colorful as possible. And what I do want you to do is each of these is a different color. I don't think you should do two colors in one section. Let's just try to keep it so that we have one color for each section. I'm going to do a little orange here. Those are my small polka dots. And if you're interested in seeing more work by this artist, again, remember we said that this is a contemporary artist. And contemporary means an artist of now, right now. She is living, she's in her 80s, and she is living in Japan, and she paints every single day. She goes in and paints, so she's still a working artist. And I will tell you, because I think you might be interested, that when her art goes up for auction, so she does sell some of her art. So she does, these wonderful installations, and she has her art in museums, but she also sells her art at auction. They go for millions and millions of dollars. So obviously this style really appeals to people. People really like it and want it. So yes, her art pieces sell for millions and millions and millions of dollars. So start saving your pennies now if you want to buy yourself one day your very own original Yayoi. But I think that nowadays they make posters of prints that are just as cool. So maybe a poster might be better. Save your money for something else. All right, so here we go. I am finished now painting my heart again. I moved quickly. I sort of go in fast forward so that the video isn't too long. But now I have my heart all done with my different colors and my different patterns. Get a little bit of a closer look there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to put my name on it and I'm going to send it into school so that I can collect them from your teachers so that I can cut them out and then put them on this paper so that you have that nice presentation. So I hope that you enjoyed this, my first grade friends. I think this is a very interesting artist. I think partly because it's so colorful and partly because it's so interesting. And I love that this artist, she had an idea. She had an idea and something that was in her head. And she got it out and other people responded to it. They really, really liked it. Sometimes we feel like things that we're thinking about in our heads or ideas that we have, people might not like or might not understand or might think is weird. Well, this is weird and people absolutely love it. They absolutely love it. So here she is again, the artist, Japanese artist, Yayoi Kusama in one of her installation rooms. And we are going to be learning about another artist that is also contemporary next week. This is a male artist and he will be sending you a video. So look out for that. Okay, Griffins, I can't wait to see what you come up with. I hope you're having a wonderful day.